No one on the alien world of Veloria dared go near the old metal ship buried in the canyon. They called it the Forbidden Ship. It had been there before even their oldest elders were born, covered in vines, rusted from time, and glowing faintly. With strange blue lights, many had tried to enter it, to move it, to fly it, but every single one failed. Some vanished, some went mad, and some never woke up again. Liza was young, curious, and full of questions. She was a trainee guard, stationed at the edge of the ruins to keep people out, but mostly she just stared at the old ship and wondered what secrets it held. It looked like it was waiting for someone or something. One morning, a human exploration team arrived. They were allowed to visit the outer parts of the canyon, but were told never to go near the ship. Liza had seen humans before, but this one was different. He didn't laugh or take photos like the others. He stood still, looking at the ship as if he heard it whispering to him. His name was Eli, and he had quiet eyes. Eyes that looked older than his age. He walked slowly toward the ship, ignoring the warnings and red signs. Liza stepped in front of him, blocking his path. "No one is allowed near the ship," she said firmly. Eli looked at her and smiled. Softly, "I'm not here to harm it," he said. "It called me." That made Liza shiver. The ship had no voice, or did it? Eli stepped closer again, and this time, Liza didn't stop him. She followed instead, heart beating fast. As he reached out and touched the ship's outer shell, a loud hum shook the ground beneath them. The blue lights on the ship lit up, brighter than ever before. The vines pulled back as if afraid. Liza gasped. The ship was reacting to him. For centuries, it had done nothing, but now it was alive. Guards came running from all directions, shouting. They pulled Eli away and took him to the alien council. Liza went with them, confused and afraid. The council was angry. They shouted at Eli, asking what he had done. But Eli stayed calm. "I didn't do anything," he said. "It wanted me to touch it." One of the elders slammed his hand on the table. "That ship is dangerous," he growled. "You could have awakened a curse." Eli didn't reply. He only looked out the window where the ship still glowed in the distance. Later that night, Liza couldn't sleep. She kept thinking about the ship, about Eli, about the way it responded. No one had ever made it light up like that. She left her room and sneaked toward the chamber where Eli was held. He was sitting in the dark, looking peaceful. "You really think the ship called you?" she whispered. Eli nodded. "I've seen it before, in my dreams," he said. "Since I was a child." That made her feel even more nervous, but also curious. "What do you want to do?" she asked. "I want to go inside," he said, "but I need help." Liza looked around, her heart racing. If anyone saw her helping him, she would lose her place in training or worse. But something inside her said this was important. More important than rules. She nodded slowly. They waited until the guards changed shifts, then under the cover of night, they crept back to the ship. The lights were still on, humming softly, like a heartbeat. Eli placed his hand on the door. This time, it opened. A soft mist came out, and the air smelled old. Liza followed Eli inside, holding her breath. The walls were covered in glowing symbols, strange writing that looked like dancing stars. Eli touched one of the panels, and suddenly, a voice echoed inside. "Welcome, pilot," it said, in a soft, ancient language. Liza didn't understand it, but Eli did. He turned to her, eyes wide. "It spoke to me," he whispered. He stepped forward, deeper into the ship. Lights followed him, turning on with every step. It was as if the ship had been asleep for a long time. And now it had finally woken up. Liza followed closely, unsure of what they would find inside. But one thing was clear: nothing on Veloria would be the same again. The sky over Veloria was heavy with dark clouds as the council gathered in silence. They had seen the forbidden ship light up for the first time in 1,000 years. And worse, it had happened because of a human. No one spoke at first, not even the elders. Their minds were full of fear, confusion, and something they didn't want to admit: curiosity. Eli stood before them, quiet as always. He didn't argue, didn't beg, didn't explain more than he had to. Lisa stood beside him, her hands shaking. She had broken many rules by helping him. She should have been ashamed, but instead, she felt something stronger. She wanted answers. The High Elder finally spoke, his voice cold and slow. "You touched what should not be touched," he said to Eli. "You awoke something that should never rise again." Eli looked at him and nodded once. "It called me," he said, "and I answered." The council didn't like those words. They whispered among themselves, angry and afraid. The forbidden ship was part of their ancient past. Some said it came from gods, others from monsters. None truly knew, and that made it worse. "Do you think you're special?" One of the councilwomen asked Eli. Eli didn't answer right away. Then he said something that made even Liza stop breathing. "I don't think I'm special," he said, "but I think the ship does." That was when the decision was made. Eli was to be sent back to his kind immediately. The council feared he might trigger something inside the ship they could not stop. They told the guards to lock him away until the transport ship arrived. Lisa was dismissed without a word, but the ship had other plans that night. As the guards tried to move Eli to the holding cell, the ground shook again. Lights from the canyon shot into the sky, sharp and blinding. The forbidden ship was humming louder than before. Its voice echoed across the cliffs, even though no one could understand it. People came running from all over the city. They stood in fear, staring at the ship that was once dead and cold. Now it looked alive. Liza watched from her window, her heart pounding. The ship was reacting to Eli, even though he was far away. It was like it was waiting for him again, crying out to be touched. She couldn't sleep. She couldn't sit still. She had to know the truth. She had to help him again. While the guards were distracted by the ship's light show, Liza sneaked into the council's prison tower. She found Eli sitting alone in a cold room with no windows. He looked up and smiled like he knew she would come. "They're going to send you away," Liza whispered. "I know," Eli said, "but the ship won't let me go." Liza stared at him, confused. "What are you?" she asked softly. Eli shook his head. "I don't know," he said, "but I dream of that ship every night, even before I came to this planet." That chilled her bones. How could a human dream of a ship that had never flown in thousands of years? How could he know its halls, its lights, its voice? There was something more going on, something even the elders couldn't understand. Eli stood up and looked at her. "Will you help me again?" he asked, her breath caught in her throat. If she said yes, there was no turning back. She would become an enemy to her people. But something deep inside her heart whispered that she already knew the answer. She nodded slowly. "We'll go back to the ship," she said. "But this time we must be faster." As they made their way back toward the canyon, the ground shook harder. A crack appeared in the rocks above the ship. The ancient structure was rising, lifting itself out of the ground. People screamed and ran. The council shouted commands. Weapons were raised, but the ship ignored them all. It was moving, breathing, and calling out with a sound no machine should make. And it only stopped when Eli stepped into the canyon. The ship's glow softened, almost like it was calm again. Like it had been afraid without him. Liza stared at Eli as he walked toward the door. It opened again, slowly and gently, like it knew him. He turned and looked at her with a calm fire in his eyes. "I think it wants to fly again," he said. Lisa swallowed her fear and followed him in. Above them, the sky rumbled as if the stars themselves were waking up. Something ancient had been disturbed, and Valoria would never be the same again. The air inside the ship was warmer now, like it had a heartbeat, not the cold, silent feeling from before. Each time Eli stepped forward, the lights followed. They didn't blink or flicker. They moved like they were breathing with him. Liza didn't speak. She had no words. She had grown up hearing stories of this place, stories full of fear and warnings. But nothing prepared her for the truth. The ship wasn't haunted. It wasn't cursed. It was waiting. They reached the center of the ship, a round chamber full of glass panels and glowing symbols. Eli placed his hand on one of the panels, and the entire ship answered. A low hum shook the walls, and the glass turned clear, showing the sky above. Then the voice returned. "Pilot confirmed," it said, soft but strong. "Connection stabilized." Lisa backed away, her heart racing. The voice wasn't in her language, but Eli understood it perfectly. He didn't look surprised. In fact, he looked like he expected it. "I know this voice," he said quietly. "I've heard it since I was a child, even before I knew what it meant." Lisa stared at him, her thoughts in chaos. This wasn't normal. This wasn't possible. But it was happening, right in front of her. A shape appeared from the wall. A glowing figure made of light. It was tall, not quite human, not quite alien. Its voice was calm, almost kind. "I am the Guardian," it said. "The last memory of the creators." Eli stepped forward without fear. "Who were they?" he asked. "Your ancestors," the Guardian replied. "And mine," Lisa blinked in shock. Ancestors? Was it saying humans and Valorians shared the same blood? The idea made her knees weak. The Guardian turned to her as if reading her thoughts. "You were once one," it said. "Long ago, before the skies were divided." Eli looked around the room, the lights, the shapes, the voices, and then he asked the one question that mattered most. "Can this ship still fly?" The Guardian paused. "It can," it said, "but it needs you." The panels began to shift, creating a seat in the center of the chamber. Straps and lights wrapped around it like it had waited for this moment forever. Eli looked back at Liza, unsure, but she didn't stop him. She couldn't. This was bigger than both of them now. He sat down, and the ship reacted instantly. Every light turned bright. Every surface came alive. The outside of the ship began to glow again, brighter than before. People outside screamed and ran. Thinking the end was near, the council was already watching from the city tower. They had seen the ship's reaction again. Guards were sent to stop whatever was happening. Ships were launched to surround the canyon, but none of it mattered inside. Eli closed his eyes. The seat moved, adjusting to his body. He whispered something no one else could hear, and the ship answered with a voice like thunder and wind. Liza held on as the ship shook, not with fear, but with energy. The floor trembled. The glass showed the sky opening, and then, with one deep sound, the ship rose. It lifted slowly, like a beast waking up after a long sleep. Dust flew in every direction. The ground cracked. And then, the forbidden ship took flight. Valoria watched. In silence, for the first time in 1,000 years, the ancient ship was flying, and at its heart, a human boy who had no title, no army, and no reason to be chosen, except the ship chose him. Lisa stood beside him, eyes wide as stars rushed past the windows. They weren't just passengers anymore. They were part of something lost and forgotten. But far below, the council prepared something dark. They didn't see a miracle. They saw a threat. And they would not let this human leave the skies without a fight. The forbidden ship was no longer sleeping, and the war it once ran from might be waking too. Asterisk, the chains they put on Eli weren't made of steel. They were made of fear of the unknown, fear of the past, fear of a human who had done the impossible. He had flown the ship no one else could even wake, and now the council had locked him in the lowest chamber beneath the city. No windows, no light, and no sound except his own breath. Lisa sat outside the chamber, her hands shaking. The guards didn't speak to her. They just looked at her like she was a traitor. Maybe she was, but she didn't care, because in her heart, she knew the truth. Eli wasn't a danger. He was a key above them, in the sky. The ancient ship floated alone, uncontrolled, unmoving, but glowing. The people stared up at it like it was a god. But the council saw a weapon, and they wanted it grounded. "Prepare to destroy it," said the High Elder. His voice was cold, heavy with fear. "Before it brings back what we buried." Liza heard those words and froze. They were going to fire on the ship. They didn't even understand it. And still, they wanted to destroy it. She had to act, now not later. She slipped into the shadows and made her way to the prison floor. The guards had changed shift again. They were tired, distracted by the panic in the city. She opened the chamber door and stepped in. Eli looked up at her calmly. "I knew you'd come," he said. "They're going to kill it," she whispered. "They're calling it a threat." Eli nodded, stood up and walked past her. He didn't need directions, he knew the way. They moved fast through the halls, hiding in corners, dodging eyes, and as they ran, something in the air began to shake, far. Above them, the forbidden ship started to descend. But not because the council called it, it was answering Eli's steps. It hovered low, just above the canyon, like it was reaching for him. The sky turned purple. Thunder without sound rolled across the horizon. The ship's lights flickered. Not in fear, but in warning. Something was coming. When they reached the edge of the canyon, Valorian guards spotted them. Blasters were raised, shouts filled the air. "Stop them!" a voice called. They must not reach the ship. But the ship had already made its choice. A beam of light shot down from the hull. It surrounded Eli and Liza, lifted them into the air like feathers. The guards fired, but the beam bent space. Their weapons failed before the energy even touched them. Inside the ship, everything came alive again. The panels glowed, the voice returned. "Pilot reconnected," the ship said. "Defense protocol active." Liza landed beside Eli, gasping for breath. "We're inside again," she said. "They tried to stop us." Eli didn't answer. His eyes were locked on the glass window. Ahead, outside, Valorian warships surrounded the canyon, each one aiming at the ancient ship. The council had given the order. They were ready to shoot. The ship spoke again, louder this time. "Threat detected," it said. "Shall I defend?" Eli stepped forward, calm and steady. "Do not harm them," he said. "Just keep us safe." The ship obeyed. A shield of golden light spread around its body. When the Valorian warships opened fire, their beams shattered on impact. Explosions lit up the sky, but the ancient ship didn't move. It stood still, glowing like a star, unshaken and untouched. From the city towers, the council watched in horror. Their strongest weapons had failed. Their fear had come true. The human had bonded with something older than their laws, something they could no longer control. Inside, Liza turned to Eli. "What now?" she asked. He looked at the stars shining above the shield. "We go where it wants to take us," he said. "There's something it wants to show us." The ship began to rise, slow but steady. The canyon dropped below them. The city lights faded behind, and ahead in the sky, a path opened, stars shifting like doors. Valoria was shrinking behind them, but the mystery was growing ahead, and neither Eli nor Liza knew what they would find next, only that something ancient had begun to move again, and nothing could stop it now. No one had touched the stars in so long, not like this, not in a ship that remembered how the universe used to breathe. The forbidden ship cut through the sky like it belonged there, like it had been asleep too long and now wanted to run. Eli stood at the front of the control deck, his hands glowing faintly as they touched the ship's surface. He wasn't flying it with buttons or levers. He was connected to it, mind to machine, heartbeat to power. It felt like flying with a memory. Liza sat beside him, eyes wide, holding her seat tightly. The stars outside weren't still anymore. They moved as if clearing a path for the ship. A silver road opened through space, and the ship followed it without hesitation. She wanted to ask where they were going, but Eli already knew. "There's something calling," he said. Not a voice, not words, but a feeling. The ship didn't just move fast, it danced through dark matter like it had done this before, like it had visited every corner of space 1,000 years ago and remembered the way home. Then, suddenly, everything stopped. No sound, no motion, just deep silence. Outside the glass, a planet hung in black space, glowing softly with gold rings and red clouds. The ship circled it once, then lowered itself gently as they landed. The ship spoke again. Hidden vault reached. It said, "History ready." Liza looked at Eli, confused. "Vault?" she asked, but he didn't answer right away. He looked distant, like he was listening to something far away. The door opened slowly, steam escaping like a long sigh. They stepped out onto solid ground. But it wasn't natural, the floor beneath them was smooth and dark like glass. Ancient markings ran along the surface. Symbols Lisa had seen only in her oldest history book, symbols no one could translate. Ailey walked without fear. The place seemed to know him. Lights turned on with each step. A deep hum filled the air, like a quiet heartbeat. At the center of the vault stood a crystal tower, pulsing with blue energy. The ship's guardian appeared. Again, floating in the air. "This is the Echo Core," it said. "Here, truth is stored." L.A. raised his hand and the tower responded. Images appeared in the air, moving pictures of old worlds, forgotten wars, ships flying in great fleets. And then humans, but not from Earth. These humans wore armor of light, and they stood beside creatures who looked like Lisa's kind. Liza gasped. "We were together," she whispered. "Long ago," the Guardian nodded slowly. "Before fear broke the stars," it said. "You were one people, creators and protectors of the sky." Ely stared at the images, eyes wide. One of the old warriors in the vision looked exactly like him. Same face, same eyes. "Who is that?" he asked, voice shaking. The Guardian answered calmly, "Your ancestor, the first pilot of this ship." Silence fell over them. Liza felt like the air had been knocked from her chest. "You carry his blood," the Guardian continued. "That is why the ship woke for you." Eli stepped back, heart racing. He didn't want to be a chosen one. He didn't want to be part of an ancient story. He just wanted to explore. But the past didn't care what he wanted. It had already chosen him. Suddenly, alarms echoed through the vault. The ship's voice returned. This time sharp. "Enemy vessels detected. Tracking beacon active." Liza spun around, eyes wide. "They followed us," she said. "The Council, they must have planted something on you." Alile touched his chest and pulled out a tiny piece of metal hidden under his jacket. A tracking device. He threw it on the ground and crushed it underfoot. "Can the ship get us out?" Lisa asked, panic rising. Eli turned to the Guardian. "We need to leave now." But the Guardian shook its glowing head. "The vault cannot be left while data is transferring. You must protect the core." Outside, enemy ships began landing. Heavy boots marched across the black glass. Lasers lit up the darkness. Eli turned to Liza and nodded. "We defend this place," he said. "Even if we fall." She pulled out her blade. Old but strong, and for the first time she felt like she was standing not beside a human, but beside a legend waking up from history. The first shot came without warning. It hit the edge of the vault wall and sparked like thunder. Dust flew into the air as the enemy moved in. Black-armored Valorian soldiers stormed across the glass floor, their weapons glowing red. They weren't here to ask questions. They were here to erase whatever truth the vault was hiding. Eli didn't flinch. He stepped in front of the Echo Core and placed both hands on the ground. The ship above, still hovering, responded to his touch. A shield of light formed around the tower, humming like a heartbeat. The ancient systems were awake again, and they were ready to defend their secrets. Lisa stood by his side, blade in hand. She had never killed before, but this was different. These soldiers weren't protectors. They were destroyers, and they had come to silence a truth that belonged to the stars. One soldier raised his blaster and fired straight at Eli. The energy beam stopped mid-air, frozen like ice. It cracked, shimmered, and shattered into light. The crowd of attackers paused, startled. Their weapons didn't work like they used to. Eli's body glowed faintly now, not with magic, but something deeper, something ancient. His blood had changed. The ship had done something to him. The Guardian appeared once again, floating between them and the soldiers. "This is forbidden ground," it said. "You are not welcome here." The soldiers fired again, this time at the Guardian. But the light around it bent the shots, absorbing them. Then the floor itself shifted. Lines of glowing energy cracked open beneath the invaders' feet. Some screamed and fell back. Others pushed forward. Desperate, Eli closed his eyes. He could feel the vault systems like nerves in his own skin. The energy around him wasn't just protecting him, it was listening to him. He raised one hand, and a wave of light pushed outward, knocking the soldiers away without killing them. He didn't want to hurt them. He just wanted them to stop. Laser watched in awe. He wasn't just a pilot anymore. He was something more. Not a god, not a weapon. A link then, from the enemy ranks, someone else appeared. A woman in black robes, with golden eyes and a voice like metal scraping glass. She wasn't a soldier. She was something darker. A seeker. An agent of the Deep Order, the ones who erased history. "You don't understand what you're touching, boy," she said. "That blood in your veins is a curse." Eli looked at her calmly. "No," he said. "It's a key." The seeker raised a strange device and aimed it at the echo core. The Guardian screamed, not in sound, but in light. The tower flickered. The images above began to blur. Liza jumped forward, slicing the device in half with one clean strike. Sparks flew. The seeker staggered back. "You side with him?" the seeker asked. Liza didn't answer. She stood between Eli and the enemy, sword raised, eyes burning. She didn't need to speak to show where her heart stood. The ground shook again. But this time, it wasn't from battle. The vault itself was waking. The echo core flared bright blue, and a beam of energy shot into the sky. Above, the ship responded, opening like a flower, sending out a pulse across the stars. Something had been sent, a message, a signal to others. Eli gasped as the beam passed through him. His mind flooded with voices, not just one, but thousands, memories, names, places lost in time. The blood in his body burned like fire, and then cooled like water. When he opened his eyes again, they were glowing faint silver. Liza turned to him, afraid and amazed. "What did it show you?" she asked. Eli looked far away. "A map," he whispered. "A path to the others." The seeker hissed and disappeared into shadow. Knowing she had failed, the remaining soldiers fled in silence. The vault was no longer a tomb. It was a beginning. Eli dropped to one knee, exhausted. Liza caught him before he fell. "You're changing," she said. "I know," Eli replied, "and I don't know if I can stop it." Outside, the sky was no longer black. Lines of golden light crossed the stars, as if something old was watching again, as if the stars themselves were waking up. And now, the universe knew. The pilot had returned. The stars were no longer silent. They whispered now, not with sound, but with light. 1,000 ancient signals blinking across the sky, calling, remembering, awakening. Eli stood on the bridge of the ancient ship. He was different now. His eyes shimmered like silver moons. His skin hummed with the soft echo of the ship's pulse. He was no longer just a boy from Earth. He was something more. Liza watched him with quiet awe. Her world had changed, not because of war, not because of force, but because of a single human the universe had not forgotten. The ship floated above the vault planet, surrounded by silence. The stars stretched before them like an open sea. The echo core now rested deep inside the ship, fully merged with its systems. The memories of the old alliance, the creators, the forgotten unity, everything had been restored. But with knowledge came danger. The Deep Order had failed to destroy the vault, and they would not stop. Eli knew they would come again, stronger. But this time, he would be ready. The ship spoke in a softer voice now. New coordinates received. It said, "Ancient signal detected." Eli raised his hand and saw a trail of golden stars stretching across space. It wasn't just a path, it was a call. Another ship, another vault, another forgotten place was waiting. Liza stepped beside him, her blade strapped to her back, her eyes fierce. "Where does it lead?" she asked. Eli smiled slightly. "To others like us," he said. "To those who still remember." She didn't ask if it was dangerous. She already knew. But she also knew something else. She didn't want to go back. Her place was no longer on Veloria. It was here. beside the one who had turned a dead machine into a living sky. A sound echoed through the ship. Soft but clear chimes, bells, memories. From the control panel, a flower bloomed in light, not real, but made of energy. A symbol from an old legend Lisa's people had long forgotten. A sign of unity between worlds. The ship shifted, humming deeply. Engines lit with fire older than suns. The stars moved again, bending space. The journey to the next vault had begun. Behind them, Veloria grew smaller, but it was no longer a place of fear now. It was a part of history reconnected to the stars. And ahead, countless stars waited, each one holding a secret, a memory, a truth left behind. Ailey sat in the pilot's seat, the ship wrapping around him like a second skin. It didn't need controls anymore. It responded to his thoughts, his feelings, his dreams. He could feel every bolt, every beam of light, every pulse of energy. He was not flying it, he was part of it. Lisa leaned beside him, staring into the endless space. "What will they call you?" she asked. Eli looked at her, unsure. Then he said, "I don't need a name. But if they ask," he smiled, "tell them I was the last pilot who listened." The ship roared as it broke into light. Stars blurred into lines, space opened like a door, and just like that, they were gone. Two souls, once strangers, now the first of something new. Somewhere far behind, a signal blinked, a message repeating through time and stars. Not in code, not in words, but in a language only ships and skies could speak. He flew the ancient UF, no one else could, because he didn't try to command it, he simply understood it. And that was all the stars had been waiting for. Asterisk.